Why did my dad choose his new wife over calling 911 for me? My dad married Linda 3 months after my mom died. Everyone said it was too fast, but dad insisted he couldn't handle being alone in that house. Linda was a nurse he'd met at the hospital during mom's final weeks. She seemed caring at first, always bringing dad meals and checking on him. I didn't visit much after the wedding because something about Linda made me uncomfortable. She'd stand too close when talking, touch my shoulder in ways that felt possessive rather than friendly. Dad said I was being unfair, that Linda had saved him from grief. But when I did visit, I noticed things. Dad had lost maybe 30 pounds. He'd doze off mid-conversation, his words slurring like he was drunk even though he'd quit drinking years ago. His hands shook when he reached for his coffee. When I asked if he was sick, Linda would answer for him, saying he was just tired, just adjusting to retirement, just getting older. The medicine cabinet in their bathroom was full of bottles I didn't recognize. Not Dad's usual blood pressure medication, but other things with labels I couldn't read because Linda kept them turned backward. When I tried to check one, she appeared in the doorway asking if I needed something, and I felt like a kid caught snooping. Dad stopped calling me. Before Linda, we'd talk twice a week, but now weeks would pass with nothing. When I called him, Linda would answer and say he was sleeping or busy or couldn't come to the phone right now. She'd promised to have him call back, but he never did. My sister Amy noticed too. She lived across the country, but said Dad's emails had changed. Shorter and stranger, not like him at all. When she suggested visiting for Thanksgiving, Linda said they were going on a cruise and it would be better if we waited until Christmas. I showed up anyway on a random Tuesday, used my old key. Dad was asleep on the couch at 2 in the afternoon. When I shook him awake, his eyes took too long to focus. He seemed confused about what day it was, asked if mom was making dinner. I told him mom died 8 months ago. He started crying like he'd forgotten. Linda came home and found me there. Her face went hard when she saw I'd woken Dad up. She said he needed his rest, that I should have called first, that I was stressing him out. Dad fell asleep again while we argued. I stayed for dinner, watched Linda give Dad 3 pills with his food. When I asked what they were for, she listed conditions I'd never heard Dad mention. Anxiety, insomnia, high blood sugar. She said he'd been diagnosed right after mom died and needed careful management. But Dad had always been healthy. His last physical before mom got sick showed nothing wrong. I started taking pictures of the medication bottles when Linda left the room. That's when my throat started closing. I'd eaten something with peanuts in it, and my allergy was severe. My EpiPen was in my car, and I couldn't breathe well enough to get there. I grabbed Dad's shoulder, wheezing, trying to tell him I needed help now. Linda was already pulling out her phone, but not to call 911. She was texting someone, her fingers moving fast. I begged her to call for help, my vision starting to go dark at the edges. Dad was trying to stand up, but couldn't seem to get his legs working right. Linda finally looked at me and said if she called 911, the paramedics would see Dad's condition and ask questions she couldn't answer. She said I should have checked the ingredients before eating her cooking. The casual way she said it while I was dying made my dad suddenly move faster than I'd seen him move in months. He grabbed for Linda's phone, but she pulled it away, and that's when I saw what was really happening. The rest of the story is linked below or on my channel. Dad lunges for my car keys in his pocket. His hands are shaking so badly he can barely grip them, but determination flashes in his eyes, the first clear emotion I've seen from him in months. Linda steps between us, blocking his path to the door. Thomas, you're too weak to help her, she says, her voice eerily calm while I'm struggling for air on the floor. You'll collapse before you reach the car. But something's changed in my father. He shoves past her with a strength I didn't think he still possessed, his skeletal frame somehow finding reserves of energy as he staggers toward the door. Linda grabs his arm, her fingernails digging into his skin. If you go out there, they'll see what I've done to you, she hisses, forgetting I can hear her. They'll take you away from me. Dad freezes for just a second, processing her words. I see the moment it clicks, the realization washing over his face like cold water. His eyes dart to the pill bottles on the counter, then back to Linda, then to me gasping on the floor. You've been drugging me, he whispers, the words barely audible over the wheezing sounds coming from my throat. My vision is starting to tunnel, black edges creeping in. I can't feel my fingers anymore. I'm going to die on my father's kitchen floor while this woman watches. Dad wrenches free from Linda's grip and stumbles toward the door. Linda lunges for him, but he's already outside, moving faster than I've seen in months. Through the open door, I can see him half running, half falling toward my car. Linda stands in the doorway, watching him. Then she turns back to me with a look so cold, it sends a chill through my oxygen-deprived body. This is your fault, she says quietly. We were fine before you started snooping. I can't respond. My throat has closed almost completely now. I'm clawing at my neck, my body instinctively fighting for air, even as my consciousness starts to slip away. The last thing I see is Linda picking up her phone again, calmly scrolling through it while I suffocate 3 feet away from her. Then darkness. Beeping. That's the first thing I register. Steady electronic beeping. Then voices, muffled and distant, like I'm underwater. I try to open my eyes, but they're so heavy. Something is in my throat. I panic, trying to reach up, but my arms won't move right. She's waking up. Melissa, can you hear me? You're in the hospital. You had a severe allergic reaction. Try not to fight the tube. A tube. That's what's in my throat. I force my eyes open and see a nurse leaning over me, adjusting something on a machine beside the bed. The fluorescent lights are painfully bright. Your father got to your EpiPen just in time, she continues, checking my vitals. The paramedic said another minute and you might have suffered brain damage from lack of oxygen. Dad, where is he? I try to ask, but can't speak around the tube. The nurse seems to understand. Your father's just down the hall. He's being treated too. Treated? Fear spikes through me, making the heart monitor beep faster. The nurse puts a gentle hand on my arm. He's gonna be okay. They're running tests, but he's stable. He collapsed after the paramedics arrived. I must look terrified because she quickly adds, the doctor can explain everything once we get this tube out. Your oxygen levels are good. Let me get the respiratory therapist. Everything moves quickly after that. The tube comes out, leaving my throat raw and sore. They give me ice chips and explain that I'll be hoarse for a while. A doctor comes in. Dr. Patel, according to her badge, and sits at the edge of my bed. Your father is suffering from what appears to be chronic benzodiazepine poisoning, she says, without preamble. He's been given on medications that have gradually built up in his system. The toxicology report shows dangerously high levels of several prescription drugs. I try to speak, but my voice comes out as a raspy whisper. Linda, his wife. Dr. Patel nods grimly. Yes, he's told us everything. The police are involved now. Your father has made a statement saying she's been giving him medication without his knowledge or consent for months. I close my eyes, relief and anger washing over me in equal measure. When I open them again, Dr. Patel is watching me with concern. Can I see him? I manage to ask. In a little while. He's being treated for withdrawal symptoms. It's going to be a difficult process. These drugs can't be stopped suddenly. It could cause seizures or worse. We're tapering him off safely. A police officer comes in later to take my statement. My voice is stronger now, though it still hurts to talk. I tell him everything, the changes in Dad, the medicine cabinet, Linda's refusal to call 911, her admission that she'd been drugging him. He takes notes, his face impassive, but his eyes growing harder as I continue. Where is she now? I ask, when I've finished. We have officers looking for her. She left the scene before paramedics arrived. He hesitates, then adds, your father said she took his wallet and car keys before she left. Of course she did. Even in crisis, Linda was calculating. They finally let me see Dad that evening. They wheel my bed into his room since I'm still too weak to walk. He looks small in the hospital bed, hooked up to IVs and monitors, but his eyes are clearer than I've seen them in months. I'm so sorry, he whispers when he sees me, tears streaming down his hollow cheeks. I didn't know. I thought I was losing my mind. She kept telling me it was grief, that I was depressed, that the medication was helping. I reach for his hand. It's cold and trembling, but his grip is stronger than it was yesterday. She said she was taking care of me, he continues, his voice breaking, but she was poisoning me, and she almost let you die rather than risk getting caught. A nurse comes in, checking both our IVs. 10 minutes, she says gently. You both need rest. Dad nods, then turns back to me, urgency in his eyes. I've called Amy. She's flying in tomorrow. We're going to fix this. I'm going to get better. He squeezes my hand. I won't choose anyone over my children ever again. I believe him. For the first time in months, I can see my real father again behind those tired eyes. The fog is lifting. As they wheel me back to my room, I realize we've escaped something much worse than we initially understood. Linda didn't just want Dad's companionship. She wanted him compliant, confused, and completely under her control, and she was willing to watch me die to maintain it. 3 days after being admitted, I'm sitting in my hospital bed staring at the toxicology report in my hands. The medical terminology is dense, but the conclusion is unmistakable. Dad's blood contained dangerous levels of benzodiazepines, sleep aids, and something called anticholinergics that Dr. Patel explained can cause confusion and memory problems. The report confirms what we already knew, but seeing it in black and white makes my stomach turn. The levels indicate long-term administration, Dr. Patel explains, standing at the foot of my bed. This wasn't just a few pills here and there. This was systematic. Dad sits in a chair beside me, looking better than he has in months. They've been carefully tapering him off the medications, and though he's experiencing withdrawal symptoms, tremors, anxiety, insomnia, his eyes are clearer, his voice stronger. When can I go home? He asks. Dr. Patel's expression softens. We need to monitor you for at least another week, Mr. Cross. Benzodiazepine withdrawal can be dangerous if not properly managed. The door opens and a police officer, Detective Ramirez, who's been handling our case, steps in. His face tells me everything before he speaks. We have a problem, he says, closing the door behind him. Linda's gone. She emptied your accounts this morning, Mr. Cross. All of them. Dad's face crumples. How much? Just over $80,000. She used the power of attorney you gave her. I reach for Dad's hand as he slumps in his chair. That was everything, he whispers. My retirement, my savings. Detective Ramirez pulls out a notepad. We've put an alert on her name and description, but she may have already crossed state lines. Do you have any idea where she might go? Family? Friends? Dad shakes his head. I don't know anything about her, do I? Everything she told me could be a lie. The detective's phone rings, and he steps outside to take the call. I turn to Dad, trying to find words of comfort, but there's nothing I can say that will make this better. Amy's flight lands in an hour, I tell him instead. She'll be here soon. He nods, tears welling in his eyes. I've been such a fool, Melissa. I let that woman into our lives, gave her access to everything. You were grieving, I say, squeezing his hand, and she took advantage of that. She was there during your mother's last days, he says, his voice hollow. She must have been watching me, planning this the whole time. The thought makes my skin crawl. Linda had been one of Mom's nurses during her final weeks in hospice. She'd seemed so compassionate, so caring. Now I wonder if she'd been evaluating Dad as a target even then, while Mom was dying in the next room. Amy arrives like a hurricane, bursting into the hospital room with her laptop bag slung over her shoulder and determination burning in her eyes. She hugs me fiercely, then turns to Dad and embraces him too, though more gently. I've been researching Linda since you called, she says, pulling out her laptop, and I've found some things. Amy has always been the investigator in the family. While I got Dad's empathy, she got his analytical mind. She works in cybersecurity and apparently spent her 6-hour flight digging into Linda's past. First of all, her name isn't Linda Matthews. It's Linda Carver. She's used at least 3 other aliases that I can find. She turns the screen to show us a driver's license photo of a younger Linda with different hair but the same calculating eyes. And her nursing license? Amy continues, pulling up another document. It was revoked in 2018 for stealing medication from patients. Dad's hands begin to shake more violently. I never verified anything she told me. Never even asked to see her credentials. That's how she operates, Amy says grimly. She finds men who are vulnerable widowers, usually, and moves in fast. Too fast for them to think clearly or ask questions. She pulls up more documents, news articles, court records, police reports. I found 3 other cases that match her pattern. All widowers, all with some assets, all showing similar symptoms of being drugged. What happened to them? I ask, dreading the answer. Amy's expression darkens. One died before anyone realized what was happening. The other 2 survived but lost everything. She was never charged in any of the cases. She disappeared before investigations could be completed. Detective Ramirez returns, and Amy immediately shares her findings. He takes notes rapidly, his expression growing more serious with each each detail. This changes things, he says finally. With this pattern of behavior, we can elevate the case. I'll contact authorities in the other jurisdictions where she operated. He turns to Dad. Mr. Cross, I'm sorry to ask this, but we need to go through your house. There might be evidence there that could help us build a case against her. Dad nods, looking exhausted. Take whatever you need. The spare key is under the flower pot by the back door. After Detective Ramirez leaves, the three of us sit in silence for a moment. Dad looks broken, staring at his trembling hands. I let her into our lives, he says again. I chose her over my own children. She manipulated you, Amy says firmly. She drugged you. This isn't your fault, but I can see the guilt eating at him, the shame of having been so thoroughly deceived. The woman he married 3 months after Mom died wasn't just a rushed decision. She was a predator who saw his grief as an opportunity. 2 days later, Amy and I are at Dad's house, helping the police document everything. The medicine cabinet is a pharmacy of pills with labels I don't recognize. Detective Ramirez bags them all as evidence. In the bedroom, Amy finds a hidden compartment in Linda's jewelry box containing several IDs with different names but Linda's photo. Look at this, she calls, holding up a small notebook. Inside are detailed notes about Dad, his routines, medications, bank account numbers, even observations about his mental state. She was tracking his deterioration like some kind of sick experiment. I feel physically ill reading her clinical descriptions. T, showing increased confusion today. Dosage effective. T, asked about bank statement. Distracted him with dinner and extra pill and wine. In Dad's office, we find financial records showing how systematically she'd been draining smaller amounts for months before the final withdrawal. She'd been transferring money to accounts we'd never seen, preparing for her eventual escape. She's done this before, Detective Ramirez confirms after making some calls. We've connected her to cases in 3 states. Same MO every time she finds recently widowed men with assets, marries them quickly, isolates and medicates them, then cleans them out. Why wasn't she caught? I ask, anger rising in my throat. The victims were either too embarrassed to press charges, too medicated to provide reliable testimony, or dead, he says bluntly. Your father is the first one who's both alive and clear-headed enough to testify against her. That night, back at the hospital, I sit with Dad while Amy continues her research. His withdrawal symptoms are at their peak. He's sweating, anxious. His hands won't stop shaking, but his mind is sharper than it's been in months. I keep thinking about your mother, he says suddenly, staring out the window at the darkening sky. What would she think of me now? She'd want you to get better, I say. She'd understand. He shakes his head. I betrayed her memory. 3 months after she died, I let another woman take her place. You were drowning in grief, I remind him. Linda saw that and exploited it. I should have listened to you and Amy. You both tried to warn me I was moving too fast. Before I can respond, Amy bursts into the room, laptop in hand, excitement on her face. I found her, she announces. Linda used one of her old aliases to check into a motel just across the state line. I tracked a credit card transaction. Dad sits up straighter. Have you told Detective Ramirez? Just got off the phone with him. They're coordinating with police in that jurisdiction now. She sits on the edge of Dad's bed. They're going to get her, Dad. She's not getting away this time. For the first time since this nightmare began, I see something like hope in my father's eyes. The woman who drugged him, who was willing to watch me die rather than expose her scheme, who stole everything he had, she won't disappear into the night with his life savings. I want to be there, Dad says, his voice stronger than I've heard it in months. When they confront her, I want to look her in the eye. Amy and I exchange glances. It's a terrible idea. Dad's still fragile, still detoxing from months of being drugged, but I recognize the determination in his face. It's the same look he had when he lunged for my EpiPen, fighting through Linda's manipulation to save my life. We'll talk to Detective Ramirez, I say, knowing that confronting Linda is the only way Dad will ever truly begin to heal. Detective Ramirez calls us at 5:30 inches the morning. His voice is tight with controlled excitement when I answer. We found her. Motel 6, just across the state line. Room 114. She's still there. I sit up in the hospital recliner where I've been sleeping next to Dad's bed, instantly awake. Are you going to arrest her? We're coordinating with local police now, but there's a complication. He pauses. Your father requested to be present when we confront her. Normally I'd never allow a civilian, but given the circumstances. I glance at Dad, who's awake now, watching me intently. He's still in the hospital. They're monitoring his withdrawal. I've spoken with his doctor. They believe he's stable enough for a brief supervised trip if it's important to his psychological recovery. Ramirez sounds reluctant. This isn't standard procedure, but she's hurt a lot of people. Dad reaches for the phone. His hand is steadier today, though still trembling slightly. I pass it to him. I need to do this, he says without preamble. I need to look her in the eye. I can hear Ramirez's muffled response, and Dad nods. I understand. Yes, thank you. After hanging up, Dad turns to me. They're sending a police escort. We leave in an hour. Are you sure about this? I ask. You're still recovering. I've never been more sure of anything. His eyes are clearer than they've been in months. I need to see her face when she realizes she didn't destroy me. Amy arrives as Dad is being discharged against medical advice. A nurse helps him into a wheelchair while reviewing care instructions with us. He's still weak, still experiencing withdrawal symptoms, but determination radiates from him like heat. The officers will meet you at the motel, Detective Ramirez explains as we load into his unmarked car. We want to approach carefully. She's dangerous. She's a monster, Amy says from the back seat. She watched Melissa suffocate and did nothing. Dad reaches back to squeeze her hand. I know, and I let her into our lives. The drive takes nearly 2 hours. Dad dozes intermittently, his body still fighting to regain equilibrium after months of being poisoned. When we cross the state line, he wakes fully, sitting straighter in his seat. Almost there, Ramirez says, turning onto a commercial strip dotted with fast food restaurants and budget motels. Remember, you stay in the car until we secure her. Your safety is the priority. He pulls into the Motel 6 parking lot and parks beside 2 police cruisers. Officers in tactical vests are gathered near the stairs leading to the second floor. Room 114, Ramirez confirms, checking his phone. She used her old alias, Sarah Jenkins, but it's definitely her. The manager confirmed the photo. What if she runs? I ask. There's nowhere to go. We have officers at every exit. Ramirez joins the other officers officers while we wait in the car. Through the windshield, I watch them ascend the stairs with practiced efficiency, weapons drawn but pointed down. They position themselves outside room 114, and one officer knocks sharply on the door. "Police, open up!" No response. The officer knocks again, louder. "Sarah Jenkins, this is the police. We have a warrant. Open the door now." Silence. Then a crash from inside the room. The officers exchange glances, and one of them uses a key card from the manager. They burst through the door, shouting commands. "She's running!" someone yells, and suddenly, Linda appears on the balcony, looking wildly around. She's wearing the same clothes she had on when I last saw her, her hair disheveled. She spots the fire escape at the end of the balcony and starts running. "Stop her!" Dad shouts, struggling to open his door despite his weakness. I grab his arm. "Wait, Dad, let them handle it." But Linda doesn't make it to the fire escape. An officer emerges from a room near the end of the balcony, cutting off her escape route. She freezes, trapped between officers advancing from both directions. For a moment, she looks like she might try to jump over the railing, but then her shoulders slump in defeat. The officers surround her, securing her hands behind her back with handcuffs. "I want to talk to her," Dad says, his voice stronger than I've heard it in months. "Let's wait until they bring her down," I say, but he's already opening the car door, pushing himself up on trembling legs. Amy and I hurry to support him as he stands, swaying slightly. Detective Ramirez notices and jogs over. "Mr. Cross, please wait in the vehicle." "No." Dad's voice is steel. "I need to see her." Ramirez hesitates, then nods. "Stay with me." The officers are leading Linda down the stairs now. Her face is expressionless, composed, as if being arrested is merely an inconvenience. Then she sees Dad standing there, and for just a second, genuine shock flashes across her features before she masks it. "Thomas," she says, her voice honey-sweet. "You look terrible. They're not taking proper care of you." Dad stiffens beside me. "It's over, Linda. They know everything." She tilts her head, studying him with those calculating eyes. "Everything? I doubt that. You don't even know everything." "I know you've done this before," Dad says, his voice shaking with anger now. "I know about the other men. I know you've been drugging me for months." Linda's eyes flick to the officers surrounding her, then back to Dad. Her strategy visibly shifts. "You asked for those pills, Thomas," she says, her voice dropping to a confidential tone. "You were in so much pain after losing Janet. You begged me to help you sleep, to make the anxiety stop. I was taking care of you, like I promised." Dad takes a step forward, and I tighten my grip on his arm, afraid he might collapse. "You were poisoning me," he says. "You nearly killed me, and you watched my daughter suffocate rather than call for help." "She was never in any real danger," Linda scoffs. "She's always been dramatic, just like her mother." I feel my blood boil at her casual dismissal of nearly killing me, but before I can respond, Detective Ramirez steps forward. "We found your notes, Miss Carver," he says, using her real name. "Detailed records of the medications you were giving Mr. Cross without his knowledge. That's attempted murder. And we found the other aliases," Amy adds, her voice ice cold. "The other men you targeted: David Wilson in Oregon, Robert Sanchez in Nevada, William Taylor in Colorado." For the first time, Linda's composure cracks. Her eyes widen slightly. "You can't prove anything," she says, but there's uncertainty in her voice. "We have your notebooks," I tell her. "Your detailed records of drugging my father. We have the toxicology reports. And we have the financial records showing you systematically drained his accounts." "The money was a gift," she insists. "Ask him. Thomas, tell them you gave me access to your accounts." Dad straightens, summoning strength I didn't know he still had. "I gave my wife access to our accounts, but you were never my wife, were you? You were a predator who saw my grief as an opportunity." Linda's face hardens. "You were nothing but a pathetic old man crying over his dead wife. I gave your life purpose again. By drugging me into compliance?" Dad's voice rises. "By isolating me from my children? By stealing everything I worked for? I earned that money," she hisses, dropping all pretense now. "Do you have any idea how tedious it was, playing the devoted wife to a broken-down widower? Listening to you ramble about Janet day after day, measuring out those pills, keeping you just confused enough to be manageable?" Her words hang in the air, damning in their casual cruelty. Even the officers look stunned by her admission. "Get her out of here," Ramirez says quietly to the officers holding Linda's arms. As they start to lead her toward a police car, she suddenly lunges toward Dad, her face contorted with rage. "You should have died. You were supposed to die confused and alone, just like the others." The officers yank her back, and she struggles against their grip. "This isn't over, Thomas. You think you've won? You have nothing left. I took everything." Dad watches her being forced into the police car, his expression a complex mixture of pain, relief, and something else, perhaps the beginning of closure. "No," he says quietly as the car door slams shut. "You didn't take everything. I still have my children. I still have myself. And now, I have the truth." His legs finally give out, and Amy and I catch him before he falls. As we help him back to Ramirez's car, I feel him trembling, but it's different now, not the tremors of withdrawal, but the release of months of tension and fear. "Let's go home, Dad," I say, supporting his weight as he lowers himself into the seat. He nods, exhaustion etched in every line of his face, but his eyes are clear and focused. Yes, it's time to rebuild what she tried to destroy. As Ramirez drives us away from the motel, I watch the police car containing Linda pull out behind us, heading in the opposite direction. The woman who nearly destroyed our family is finally facing justice, and though the road to recovery will be long, I know we've taken the first crucial step. Dad reaches for my hand, his grip weak but determined. "I'm sorry," he whispers, "for everything. We're going to be okay," I tell him, and for the first time in months, I actually believe it. The trial starts on a Tuesday, 3 months after Linda's arrest. I've never spent so much time in a courtroom before, and the wooden benches are as uncomfortable as they look on TV. Dad sits beside me, his body still too thin but stronger now. The tremors have mostly subsided, though they return when he's tired or stressed. The state calls Thomas Cross to the stand. Dad squeezes my hand before standing. He walks slowly to the witness box, his gait still unsteady but determined. After being sworn in, he settles into the chair and looks directly at the prosecutor, a stern woman named Miss Alvarez, who's been building the case against Linda for weeks. "Mr. Cross, can you describe your relationship with the defendant, Linda Carver?" Dad clears his throat. I met her at the hospital where my wife Janet was receiving end-of-life care. Linda, or Nurse Matthews, as she called herself then, was one of the nurses assigned to my wife's room. And when did your relationship with the defendant change from professional to personal? She started bringing me coffee during Janet's final days, sitting with me while I cried. Dad's voice catches. After Janet died, she called to check on me. It seemed kind at the time. I was drowning in grief. From the defense table, Linda watches him with cold eyes. She looks different now, prison clothes instead of her carefully coordinated outfits. Her hair pulled back severely without the soft styling she used to wear. But her eyes are the same, calculating and empty. How quickly did your relationship progress? Miss Alvarez asks. Too quickly. Dad's voice grows stronger. We were married 3 months after Janet's death. My daughters tried to warn me I was moving too fast, but I wouldn't listen. When did you first notice changes in your health? About a month after the wedding. I started feeling confused, tired all the time. I lost weight 30 pounds in 3 months. I couldn't concentrate. Sometimes I'd find myself staring at the wall, unable to remember what I was doing. Did you seek medical help for these symptoms? Linda said she'd take care of me. She was a nurse, or so I thought. She told me it was just depression, grief. She gave me pills that she said would help. Did you know what these medications were? No. She would bring them to me with water, tell me they were prescribed. Sometimes she'd mix them into my food or drinks. Dad's hands begin to shake more visibly. I trusted her completely. In the gallery behind me, Amy shifts forward, her face tense. She's been instrumental in building this case, tracking down Linda's previous victims and helping the prosecution connect the dots between cases. The prosecutor introduces the toxicology reports into evidence, walking Dad through the list of medications found in his system. Benzodiazepines, sleeping pills, antipsychotics, a cocktail designed to keep him confused and compliant. Mr. Cross, when did you realize what was happening to you? Dad looks up, his eyes finding mine in the gallery. When my daughter Melissa had an allergic reaction in our kitchen. Linda refused to call 911 or let me help. She said. He pauses, steadying himself. She said the paramedics would see what she'd done to me. The courtroom is completely silent. Even the judge leans forward slightly. I knew then that she had been poisoning me, that everything, my confusion, my weakness, it wasn't grief or depression, it was her. When the defense attorney cross-examines Dad, he tries to paint a picture of a grieving widower who misunderstood his new wife's attempts to help him. He suggests Dad took the medications willingly, that he was depressed and Linda was just trying to care for him. Isn't it possible you simply don't remember consenting to medication because of your grief-addled state? The attorney asks. Dad sits up straighter. I would never consent to being drugged into oblivion while my life savings was stolen, and I certainly wouldn't have consented to watching my daughter die rather than expose what was happening. The defense attorney has no response to that. After Dad's testimony, other witnesses take the stand, doctors explaining the effects of the medications, financial experts tracking the systematic draining of Dad's accounts, and most damaging of all, 2 of Linda's previous victims. One is an elderly man who barely escaped with his life when his son became suspicious. The other is the daughter of a man who wasn't so lucky, who died confused and alone while Linda disappeared with his money. When it's my turn to testify, I describe finding Dad increasingly disoriented, the dramatic weight loss, how Linda always intercepted my concerns. I tell the court about the allergic reaction, how Linda blocked Dad from reaching my EpiPen, how she refused to call 911. She stood there watching me suffocate. I say, my voice shaking with the memory, she was willing to let me die rather than risk exposure. Linda doesn't flinch. She sits at the defense table, occasionally whispering to her lawyer, her face a mask of injured innocence. The trial lasts 2 weeks. Every day, Dad grows a little stronger, a little more like himself. The fog of medication has lifted completely now, leaving behind a man determined to see justice done. Amy and I take turns sitting with him in court, supporting him through the grueling testimony. On the final day, the jury deliberates for less than 3 hours. We find the defendant guilty on all counts. The judge's voice is stern as she hands down the sentence: 15 years for attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud, and theft. No possibility of parole for at least 10 years. As the bailiffs lead Linda away, she turns to look at Dad one last time. There's no remorse in her eyes, only cold fury at having been caught. It's over, I whisper to Dad as we leave the courthouse. She can't hurt anyone else. He nods, blinking back tears. I still can't believe how blind I was. She was a predator, Amy says, taking his other arm. She knew exactly what she was doing. Recovery is slow. Dad's house feels different now, tainted by Linda's presence. We spend weeks cleaning, rearranging, reclaiming the space. The financial damage is substantial. Dad's retirement savings are gone, his accounts emptied. There will be restitution from Linda's assets, but it's a fraction of what was taken. Amy and I help him sort through the practical matters. She extends her leave of absence from work to stay longer, handling the financial paperwork and helping Dad establish new accounts with strict protections. I focus on his health, coordinating with doctors to ensure he's recovering properly from the months of poisoning. 6 months after the trial, we're sitting in Dad's backyard. It's a warm evening, the kind Mom used to love. Dad has gained back most of the weight he lost, and though he still tires easily, the doctors say he's making remarkable progress. I've been thinking about selling the house, he says suddenly. Too many memories here now. Not just of Linda, but of your mother too. I think I need a fresh start. Where would you go? Amy asks. I was thinking about that condo complex near Melissa's place. Being closer to family seems important now. I reach for his hand. We'd like that. He looks at us both, his eyes clear and present in a way they weren't for so long. I need to say something to you both. I'm so sorry for what I put you through, for not listening when you tried to warn me about Linda, for choosing her over my own children. Dad, Amy begins, but he shakes his head. No, let me finish. I was so lost after your mother died that I grabbed onto the first person who offered comfort. I was weak, and Linda saw that weakness and exploited it. He takes a deep breath. But that's no excuse for shutting you out, for dismissing your concerns. I failed you both. You didn't fail us, I say firmly. You were victimized by a predator who specifically targeted people in grief, and when it mattered, when I was dying on that kitchen floor, you fought through everything she'd done to you to save me. Dad's eyes fill with tears. I almost didn't make it in time. But you did, Amy says, and now we rebuild together. Later that night, as Amy and I clean up the dinner dishes, Dad calls us into the living room. He's holding a small box I recognize from Mom's things. I found this while cleaning out the closet, he says, opening it to reveal Mom's wedding ring and a few other pieces of jewelry Linda hadn't discovered. I want you both to have these, to remember her by. As he places Mom's sapphire earrings in my palm, I see the man who raised me strong, loving, present. The man Linda tried to destroy but couldn't. We've all been changed by what happened, but as I close my fingers around the earrings, I realize we've also been given a second chance. Not everyone gets to confront the person who tried to destroy their family. Not everyone gets their father back from the brink of destruction. Not everyone sees justice served so completely. We're going to be okay, Dad says, and this time, there's no doubt in his voice at all.